one of the biggest things I've been using AI for is writing articles. And so, like if you wanted to write an article about through tubing, man, I can do it, but man, I hate it.
Yeah.
It's such a mental grind to do. Or I can go into ChatGPT and say, are you familiar with through tubing operations in oil and gas? Yes, I am. Cool. What are the top 10 safety issues or top 10 issues, efficiency issues with that? And it'll list that out, whatever it thinks those are. Cool. Well, that's 10 articles. So write an article on number 1 and use Wildcat Oil Tools in the article. And you just basically tell it to do it. It writes it. You still got to curate it. You still got to read through it, make sure it doesn't use the word unveiled or 100 times, because it will. But at the same time, man, you're 90% of the way home, and then you're able to put a lot of content out with way less effort.
Welcome everybody to the very first edition of Cold Ones with Cold Bore. I am Lee Payne. We've kind of hatched this idea to just bring people in and have some good conversations over a beverage of choice. And so the lucky guest number 1 is a good buddy of mine, Justin Overstreet. Justin, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Justin Overstreet.
That works.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I work for Wildcat Oil Tools. I've gotten to know you over the last little while now, and I'm excited about it. I didn't know I was guest number 1, so I guess if there's not a guest 2, we'll know it didn't go well.
Absolute disaster.
Yeah.
So you're a great first guest because, like we said, we've got to be good friends. We've done a lot together through kind of the networking of our companies. So as we decided to kick off this kind of endeavor, it was like perfect. And you brought tequila.
Well, yeah. So. I mean, I have learned that if you show up with tequila, you usually get in. Even if you're not on the list, they just kind of let you in.
Just carry that extra bottle just in case. Right?
Yeah, well, I got a couple on me at all times usually. I need to get holsters made. That would look good, right?
Bottle might be a little big for a holster, and I don't know.
You just make a bigger holster.
Like a gun belt.
That would be outstanding. Like just
one on the front,
racked
one on the
back.
out.
Yeah,
just in case. So we're going to mix a drink.
Yep.
And then we're going to kind of jump right in. So Justin is the connoisseur of mixing ranch waters. So
I've made a couple.
Yeah.
So yeah, just usually I use the Blanco for the ranch water just because it mixes well. The Repo is more of a sipping drink, but for the ranch water I just go with this, and it's the most basic, like pour mostly tequila in that cup. And then some topo for the rest, and then add some lime.
There we go.
And it's delicious.
We're going to get this knocked off, and then while he's mixing it. So
I think it's outstanding you let the guests make your drink for you.
That's well, I got to be able to have pull some rank as the host.
Is there any way I could talk you into opening the topos?
Yes, I can definitely do that. So, okay. So for those who don't know, how do you pronounce the tequila?
Flecha Azul.
Flecha, that's right.
And it's Blue Arrow.
So we'll get into kind of the connection with Flecha and everything else. So we met, I think, at a tequila tasting, I believe. May have been one other time before that, but we were at Daniel Energy at a tequila tasting at Minute Maid Park. And I've never been to a tequila tasting. That was a first time and certainly eventful.
It was fun.
I had a great time. I did not know I would wind up tasting so many tequilas.
Well, I didn't either. My wife doesn't drink tequila, so she was giving me all of hers.
Oh,
too. So it got that evening was a good evening.
Yeah, I think it was 5 shots of tequila, 5 different types of Flecha, and
unless you're there with your wife, and then it's 10.
Yeah, and then it's 10. So that's how they kind of. We started talking there about getting y'all involved in the poker nights. Mm-hmm. And so then Wildcat and Flecha have become involved in those monthly games that have really turned into kind of a good industry networking event. If you want to talk a little bit about, like, I want to get into kind of how you kind of got into the industry and everything else, but I want to hit on this first. What is your role at Wildcat, and how do you kind of implement that here in Houston? Because it's a lot different than just the title of your job, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just your basic vice president of safety that does all kinds of marketing and sales stuff and everything else. And so,
cheers.
Salute, let's do this.
Let's do this. You got to turn the logo.
That's a good one.
That is.
But no, so my role at Wildcat my title is Vice President of Safety, but Wildcat, like every other service company, you've got so many things that need to get done, and you never have enough manpower to do it. And so if you've got people that are able to do multiple things or be, a couple of different solutions, man, why not? And I've seen in other companies I've worked for, they've not embraced that as much. It's like, no, your role is this and do this. And Wildcat is not that way. It's like, if you can do it, do it. And, I'm really blessed that they've given me as much leeway as they have. I mean, honestly, I just kind of run around doing whatever, and they trust that it's in the best interest of the company. So,
no, that's really great. Because I mean, so certain companies where they kind of get led astray with that is like the teams aren't working well together, and you get a whole lot of people kind of jumping over each other trying to do more. But when you've got a really solid team and everybody's kind of in lockstep, then you're able to do those things and have more leadway and really take on more things that can kind of like benefit the company as a whole.
Yeah, Wildcat's a unique team, man. We got a group that, all of us have got our individual priorities and all of us have our individual egos and all of that. But this team is unique in that we never really let our ego override the objective, whatever that objective is. And so if we come to the table and they're like, okay, well, Justin's better at the marketing, social media, that type of stuff, let's let him do that, even though that may not be his dedicated part of the company or the role that we need him in. Let's let that happen because it only benefits the company. And just like my personal podcast, they've been more than gracious, giving me all of the time in the world to do that. And when we talk about it internally, it's never, gosh, how much time are you spending doing that? It's man, we really get a lot of value just because people associate me with Wildcat, even though I'm on, doing my Street Smart podcast, they still being associated with Wildcat and still providing real benefit to the company. And it's funny, I've had Tripp, our CEO, come to me before and he's like, talk to me about maybe sponsoring my podcast. I was like, absolutely not. Number one, I would never ask for you to give me any more money. And two, you're already sponsoring it by just allowing me the time and all of that to do it. So the support at Wildcat is unreal. And I think that just speaks to why Wildcat's been as successful as it is, because they allow people to be successful doing what they do, even if that's not part of their, core, what you're hired to do.
And I would say that mentality is far different than, what it was probably 10 years ago in the industry.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah.
If podcasting was even a thing 10 years ago, and I'm not a podcast historian, so I don't know, but you would have been very hard pressed to find a company who would allow their employees to go and speak kind of like off record, off script in a podcast, or even to host one that's associated with their business.
Sure.
I mean,
I've interviewed our customers. So,
yeah.
I mean, you think about and you would think like there is potentially some liability in that as a company, but man, we've only seen positives from it. And it creates we've seen it create a unique touch point, not only into the industry, but to our customers when I have interviewed our customers, that allows us to just have a stronger relationship because of it. So it's really, I when people ask me, I've been asked quite a bit, about, should I start a podcast or whatever. It's like, number one, it's a time suck. So unless you have someone that is going to support that, or you don't mind getting divorced, either way, that's what's going to happen. It's going to take time to do it. And then, but two, man, there's some real benefit to it if you can do it right.
Colbor and Wildcat have a lot of similar personalities, or a lot of similarities in that, like, I get a lot of leeway as well. Like, I mean,
your name's Lee.
Lee, yes.
So obviously that.
Well, they've definitely gone above and beyond on the use of my name in certain things. Like, I think you were here for the poker game when our CEO Blair showed up with shirts that all had play off of Lee. It was like spectacularly.
I wasn't here for that. And
wonderfully.
I'm so disappointed now.
I think I got 6 shirts or 5 shirts, which,
I didn't get any.
It takes a special person to wear a shirt with their names just splattered across the front of it. So I think my wife gets more play out of those shirts than I do. But no, it's so they've given a lot of leeway. Obviously, we're sitting here, we're having a drink, we're having this conversation in a podcast because they recognize the same thing that the Wildcat does, right?
Yeah.
That there's a net benefit, and part of that is not just telling everybody what your company does, but it's also the branding of the company and the culture.
Right, and it gives unique insight into the people that are inside the company, because at the end of the day, if a customer is going to do business with your company, there are other companies out there that do what Cold Bore does. There are other companies out there that have the same service packages that Wildcat has. It comes down to the people, and so if you can give a unique insight into the people behind what's happening, I think that's another great use of the system and a great use of this platform. And it's only positive. So when people ask me, should I start one? I'm like, number one, if you have the time to do it, sure. Why not? Go ahead. I mean, it really, the barrier to entry is so small. I mean, all you need is just a $20,000 studio or whatever this is, or all the way down to literally, I started it with a Mac. I started with a MacBook Pro, GoPro Hero 9, and run it on GarageBand and iMovie. And that is just about as effective for this type of a podcast as this setup here, even though this setup I'm really jealous of it, frankly.
So, like in the podcast, I think too, it helps a lot of people get out of that kind of.
Hey, you know how microphones work?
Do I?
Do you know how microphones work?
I got to be closer to it.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. I think a lot of people that it helps get people out of that introverted state, because it's a little bit different sitting here talking, and some people have a problem doing this and ignoring the camera, where other people may not be this open dialogue in person. That it's a little bit different for them to maybe interview somebody. And so I think that's why you're seeing a lot more of the podcasts and stuff. And it's a way to get information out.
It is. And the perspectives that you see once you begin, having real conversations, and they're not candid necessarily, because, I mean, obviously we're being produced, we're on mics and all of that. And some of us understand how mics work, and other people are working on it, and that's okay. You'll get better. This is number one.
Here we go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's okay. But once you can get past that and you're having an actual conversation, man, you can really learn a lot of information in a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah. No. So, I wanted to get in and kind of talk. So I know from having conversations in the past, you're from Midland, but how did you, besides just being in Midland, and that's kind of the logical step, what brought you into oil and gas?
So my dad owned service businesses my whole life. So I watched him growing up own, he had a welding and fabrication business when I was a kid. In mid 80s, I watched him auction that off when things shit the bed there. And I didn't really want to be in oil and gas just because I'm contrarian by nature. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm from Midland and I'm not going to do that. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, but man, there's always work. And it turns out I really like the industry, really like the people. And I've had a couple of instances where I've, in my adulthood, gotten out of the industry only to come back and be like, man, I missed these people in this industry, and it's unlike any other. But I mean, honestly, there is no other answer than that's just in Midland. That's kind of what you're around so much, and it just is so much part of the community, and it always will be. So, I lived in Midland for 33 years, and then moved to Tomball and was here for like 6 months, and took a job with Exterran that moved me to Fort Worth, and we lived there till 2018. We moved back here when I took the job at Wildcat.
Oh, right on. So, okay, I had a different path. I'm first generation oil field. I got out of school and I had been working at a bank forever. I was a commercial real estate appraiser, and nothing against the industry, still keep in touch with all the guys I used to work with, but I was bored. And I was like, this isn't for me. I can't see myself doing this for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And I just literally took a flyer, burned the boats mentality, and took a job with Weatherford as a field engineer trainee, and literally just was like, I like this. Because there's always something different. There's always something unique. You never really face the same problem day in and day out. No,
there's a lot of similarities, but you don't.
Yeah. You meet some of the greatest and most interesting people in the world in oil and gas.
Interesting is a great way to describe it.
Well, you got guys that, in certain aspects, education doesn't matter.
Oil and gas is unique that way. I don't have a degree. And honestly, I've been very fortunate that some things have worked out right, but by and large, this industry will reward hard work and people that don't mind saying, "Hey, I'll do that."
Yeah, and that's what's so like interesting. Like, I mean, some of the smartest guys I've ever met out in the field.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Some of the smartest guys I've ever met out in the field, like they were just like geniuses because they've done it for so many years and they can tell you exactly how everything works. You
learn real quick in this industry. There's a difference between educated and smart.
Exactly, 100%.
So it's been great. I love the industry. My youngest daughter now is she's graduating in the next couple of weeks, which is weird, and she's talking to me about oil and gas, and I was like, yeah. Absolutely. And there are more opportunities for women, especially now, than there were when I was coming up, for sure. And there's only going to be more. And so I would definitely encourage anyone out there thinking about getting in, just do it. Try it out. If you don't like it, it's not for you. There's plenty of other places to make a living.
Yeah. And I mean, there has been days where, during downturns and stuff where you wake up and you're like, man, I kind of wish I had a normal job.
Yeah. Well.
But you quickly move past that and you get back into the, okay, here's why I chose this industry. Here's why I chose to do what I'm doing. And you mentioned, the opportunities and that are kind of growing. That's, I think, one of the benefits of doing these podcasts is educating the market or the population who choose to watch it, that there's a human side to oil and gas that is often villainized.
Is only villainized.
Yeah.
It's such an easy target too. But I mean, if you think about, this industry's done more for every place on the planet than any other industry that has ever existed in the history of the world. So for it to be villainized, it's just a convenient political chip to play, really, basically all it is.
And it's good that so many companies are opening up with whether it's footage or allowing people to be on podcast or anything else, because it's very easy to villainize something that's not, you don't see the faces of.
Right.
And if you remember during COVID, it was, when, oil was going negative and people were getting laid off, there was a lot of people who were saying, learn to code.
Yeah.
Find a new, industry, build solar panels, whatever. And it's okay, if you actually saw the people that were being impacted, you would not have that very rash, very just crude response to people, being displaced, losing their jobs.
Yeah. It's just a flippant attitude really about, truly about people. And, it's pretty remarkable. My youngest daughter, like I said, she's getting ready to graduate. When she was a freshman, she had some social justice to her, which was awesome. And I think what's the saying? If you're not liberal in your 20s, you're a harsh human being, but if you're not conservative in your 40s, you're dumb, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but I mean,
I like it.
But she came back talking about there was some pipeline up in the north that she had signed some petition to.
Oh, the Keystone.
Yeah, maybe it was that one.
Yeah.
It might have been a different one, but I said, hey, you know what pays for every effing thing in this house? And she's like, what? And I said, that industry has paid for every single thing that you've ever enjoyed in your life. And she still signed it, but whatever.
So when we first moved here from San Antonio, obviously it was in the middle of the downturn. It was 15, 16. Things were not looking great for oil and gas.
That was the only time I got laid off was 2015.
Was it really?
Yeah.
I mean, it was tough.
Along with everybody else.
And I was having to do a bunch of layoffs when I was running ops, and then they decided they wanted me to move to Houston. And I think I just came in when we were in San Antonio. My son was 4 at the time, I think. And I walk in the door and the news was on, and it was some drill ships were leaving on the West Coast, headed up towards Alaska. And there was a bunch of protesters out in plastic kayaks, with signs no more fossil fuels and everything. And I just kind of in a
that's
moment of
hilarious
clarity, moment of just true honesty. I walked in, like I said, had just done some layoffs, and I was like, these effing assholes, everything they have on is plastic, these damn hippies. And I just, kind of went off. Didn't realize that my 4-year-old was absorbing that.
Right.
So we moved here a month later, and my wife takes him to go get a haircut, and the, girl's cutting his hair. She's like, so, asking him questions, and he tells her he moved from San Antonio. And she's like, what does your dad do? He's like, he does a lot with frack. I'm not sure his new job because he just moved over here, but I know he hates hippies.
Well, I mean, that's a true statement, regardless of what the industry's doing.
My wife said she, tried to, curl into a ball in the corner because she didn't know what else was going to happen. And the girl was like, oh, yeah, well, I don't like hippies either.
Kids are the best. I'm not even going to get on to end of what what my kids have said out in public. But no, I mean, the industry is just easily targeted. One of my favorite posts lately has been one that was a Tesla. I think it was driving in probably Austin, if I'm guessing. And the license plate said, FCK oil. So fuck oil, right? Yeah. And the caption was, cool, well, all the asphalt you're driving on goes away and the tires go away and all the plastic in your car goes away and on and on and on. And, that's another thing, the green energy stuff and all of that. I'm for that. Like, I'm all for the environment. I like going and hunting and fishing and all those things. I don't want that. But, man, if people really stopped to educate themselves and learn that you go buy an EV today, it's 70,000 miles before that thing's ever carbon neutral. Yeah. And you're like, okay, so then you're going to drive it another 70 and the battery's going to shit the bed on you and then that car's totaled. So now what? And it's a really interesting problem. And my wife asked me probably 6 months ago if I would drive a Tesla I said, of course I would. Those things are sick.
It's sweet technology.
I said, if I could, it would not be my, hey, let's go to Dallas car, but it would be, I'd come here in it for sure and go back home and charge it. But yeah, I'll drive a Tesla, man. Those things are awesome.
Insane.
They're great. But
I drove so our CEO has a Ford Lightning. And when I was in Calgary, I drove it. That's faster than a Corvette.
It's instant go. Yeah. So that's awesome.
It's crazy. But again, especially here in Texas, like an electric vehicle is not necessarily something that everybody can drive because our commutes are long.
Yeah.
Or,
we talk about it in time.
Yeah.
It's not how many miles. That's 4 hours away.
Yeah. 4 hours depending upon traffic, 3.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, the EV and everything, and like you said, like the green energy, I think there's an all above approach to how we continue to produce energy. Mm-hmm. I don't think that there's any way in the next 2 years that they're going to be like, okay, well, it's all solar and wind.
Yeah, there's no way. And, what's interesting too is one of the reasons we get vilified, and again, to your point, podcasting is doing a great job of stopping some of that, is that our industry is made up of men and women that just go to work and don't feel like we have to explain ourselves because our product explains for us or should. And I think these platforms are doing a better job of educating the public and giving us a chance to explain, like, no, we really are a net positive for the entire world. But historically, we've just not told our story because we just go to work.
And went to work and just said, well, who cares if you don't understand it?
You still need it, so whatever.
Go away, yeah. And now it's a little bit different. We're trying to explain that stuff. And by and large, we are very good stewards of the environment.
Probably no other industry does more to protect the environment, honestly, truly protect it. Now, when you think about like emissions and stuff like this, now I've been in health and safety for 20 plus years. So, and attached to that was always environmental. And I've never really enjoyed that part of it just because I've never really, not that I don't like the environment. When you look at the regulations around that, the regulations are not set up such that it's looking to eliminate that. It's set up such that it's looking to monetize that. So if you say, every year you've got to submit your emissions reports to the EPA. Well, that's not so that they can go, oh, good job reducing those. It's so they can assess a numeric value and a financial component to it to say, okay, well, you're going to do this much, that costs you this much. Mm-hmm. And I always thought that was the most ass backwards way to do any of that stuff. If you're going to regulate something, it should be try to regulate it to the point of non-existence, or just call it what it is. It's a tax.
Yep.
So whatever. But yeah, it's kind of silly to me, but at the same time, truly protecting the environment, I don't know that there's another industry that does more.
Yeah. And as part of this age of innovation that we're in, we're mostly on completions. We're always on completions. The evolution of technology that's happening in completions and drilling and everything else is just been shocking the last 5 years. Because it's the mentality that used to be was, well, we've always done it this way. You're not hearing that as often. And so now you're getting guys that come in with ideas and they go and okay, well, let's see if it works and let's engineer it. Let's make sure it's safe and then move forward. And so it's tackling a lot of those problems for us. I think I don't know a ton about it, but I think one of the interesting things is like, to try to stop flaring, they've started Bitcoin mining on sites and different things like that, so using the gas in a different way. But it's just another kind of like one of those, somebody got creative and was like, I can solve this problem.
Right.
I can make money too, but I can solve the problem.
Right. I remember being out in West Texas, and because I still have family out there, and my youngest daughter asked the question, why are all those flares burning? And I was like, because it's cheaper to do that than sell it. And she's like, so you can sell that? And I was like, yeah, but you can, right now you wouldn't want to do that because it's cheaper to just burn it. And she was like, even at her age, and at that time she was probably 12, she was like, there's got to be something different than just burning it. I was like, yeah, well, I mean, at night in West Texas, it's so flat, you can just look forever, and it's just flare after flare.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, again, the industry is great at coming up with creative solutions. And so, I've not done this. I'm just sort of anecdotally doing it right now. But if you went back through history and you looked at, regulation, you would probably find that anytime we were becoming heavily regulated in one area, you would probably see tremendous innovation, not only in that area, but also other areas of oil and gas, just because we're like, yeah, okay, cool. We're still going to do this. We just figure it out. And so I in some ways, that could be an endorsement for regulation, but it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it pushes innovation in spite of itself.
And I think what a lot of companies have done, though, is they're anticipating regulation. So the innovation is getting ahead of it. So when it does become regulated, what stuff we're already working on or we're working to do or implemented. When you go and you look at, the evolution on the frac to from diesel to e-fleets, that's been something that's been huge over the last, 3 to 5 years. That before it was just all diesel consumption, and everything else. So, with your position as, VP of safety, how much involvement do you have in having to vet technology or look at technology to tackle some of those things?
For us, it's really driven by the customer. So we're your typical, rental business. So you BOPs, we have fishing operations, those types of things through tubing operations. But most of that type of thing is driven from a customer request. And currently our customers aren't really requesting a whole lot of innovation from a technology standpoint from us. But I do evaluate technology just because I like it. So, looking at how AI can help, in terms of, just anything from I need to design a graphic to I need it to write an SOP, and it'll get me 90% there in no time at all. I remember the first time messing with ChatGPT, I was sitting in a drive-through line at Whataburger, and I just on my phone just typed in SOP for land-based drilling operations, oil and gas, and it just wrote it. And I remember reading it, going, "Well, that's pretty close," and thinking, oh, "Holy shit!" Like, I need to really spend some time figuring this out. And so when I evaluate technology, it's more around, one, how it's going to more efficiently bring, the tools of safety to the workforce. So several years ago, I moved all of our training over to a learning management system, did all the recording and all that stuff. I was like, man, I've been teaching these classes for 20 years. I know all the stuff. All I need is a mic and some software, and I'll just build these courses out. And so we built, Wildcat University, and, took all of our training from, hiring a third party to come in to do it, or, us having to do it ourselves, to now we hire you. Your job is fishing tool operator. Once I set that as your job, it prescribes the training necessary to you, and I don't have to worry about it. You've got your own dashboard. It's on you to keep up with it. And, by the way, that system costs $3,000 a year for the entire thing. I can have unlimited content and, plenty of space for people. And then you go back and you look at historically what was being spent on training. You're like, man, we cut a huge chunk of that out of the budget just by embracing technology. And so it's just been, that's when I evaluate technology, that's what I'm looking at. How do I help my operations guys be more efficient in what they're doing so that they can focus on operations and not have to worry about this other stuff? And so, whether it's, rebuilding SharePoint, which I did, or rebuilding the university, or, whatever it is, it's really built around the idea of what do I need to bring to bear so those people are more efficient in what they're doing, and they can focus on the things that are actually impactful to the company rather than this compliance thing that has to happen every single year.
Yeah. And I mean, the buzzwords, in the industry, because you mentioned it, but it was automation for the last 2 years. And now it's starting to drift to AI, because of just the sheer power of it. I think everybody's trying to figure out, okay, how can this impact my business? Where do I implement it? What do I do with it?
And when does it take over the world and kill all of us?
Yeah, and when does it become like,
Skynet,
like, iRobot or whatever the heck that movie was.
Terminator.
Terminator. When does it come back and kill us all? But I think a lot of people are trying to figure that out, whether it's drilling programs, completion programs, safety, anything, is how, how do I take the mundane off my plate every day to focus on the bigger picture? And I think that's going to be the first part.
One of the biggest things I've been using AI for is writing articles. And so, like if you wanted to write an article about through tubing, man, I can do it, but man, I hate it.
Yeah.
It's such a mental grind to do. Or I can go into Chat GPT and say, are you familiar with through tubing operations in oil and gas? Yes, I am. Cool. What are the top 10 safety issues or top 10 issues, efficiency issues with that? And it'll list that out, whatever it thinks those are. Cool. Well, that's 10 articles. So write an article on number 1 and use Wildcat Oil Tools in the article. And you just basically tell it to do it. It writes it. You still got to curate it. You still got to read through it, make sure it doesn't use the word unveiled or 100 times, because it will. But at the same time, man, you're 90% of the way home, and then you're able to put a lot of content out with way less effort than you were in the past. So it's only going to get better from there. But yeah, I mean, it's something that is powerful. It's something that in oil and gas we are notoriously slow adopters to things as an industry. But I can tell you, if you're a company and you're not embracing it, you're going to be way behind the curve when you do decide to embrace it. Other companies and people that are figuring it out now are going to be really kind of setting the tone for what's happening in the future.
Yeah. And, I've seen, just because, Cold War being a technology company and everything else, I've seen, especially the last 2 years, a bigger thirst from the industry and adoption and saying, okay, we can't do it the way we used to do it. AI seems to almost have like fast forwarded that even more.
Yeah. But 2 years ago at OTC, they were talking about technology more than I'd heard in the past. And then last year at Thrive, and Thrive, what I love about that conference is that they have the same panel of speakers every year. So you get to see these people and how their perspectives change year over year. And they were almost to a panel this year, they were talking about AI on some level. And that just tells you that if those guys, if Toby Rice is talking about AI, probably ought to pay attention, because that's something that, he seems to know what he's talking about.
You mentioned Thrive. That's one of my favorite conferences of the year. Like there's two. It's the Hydraulic Fracturing Conference, which is just a few weeks before that, and then Thrive. And Thrive is just because it's Daniel and Upright and all those guys who put that on do a very, very great job of getting a high level group of attendees there, because it's invite only.
Right.
And then, so it's not like a lot of the events where it's just a bunch of people in the peripheral that just show up. Like Thrive is, you're going to meet like
it's the
operators.
Right group.
You're going to meet,
it's the right group of people.
Yeah, it's the right group of people. You're going to get interesting perspectives. And then all those panels, not very often do you have that caliber of person sitting up on a panel that's willing to take an audience question.
Right.
And that's where, I didn't get to see a ton of the panelists this year, but I know last year, some of the questions that were asked, there were a few like, I can't really answer that one because they were very pointed, but then some others, they were like, yeah, okay. And you hear an unscripted, just straight,
a real answer.
It's not canned.
Right.
And that gives you a completely different perspective on that, executive from the company, because typically C-suite guys.
Right.
And so you see kind of what they're actually thinking, today, what they're kind of planning for tomorrow and the next day, because they're very open. Like the first time I went, I was shocked at the openness of some of the answers.
It's pretty striking, honestly. And for us at Wildcat, it because it's in February every year, it lines up really well with our planning. And so we're able to take what we're planning at Wildcat, and then you listen to those executives talk and you're like, okay, well, that lines up, or that doesn't really line up. And so for us this year, our focus was, how do we use AI to maximize some things? And we've got some stuff in the works that I'm not sure I'm clear to talk about yet, so I won't. But all of it lined up very well with the panel speakers. And so we were like, okay, maybe we do know what we're doing, kind of a thing. And so it's it can be really almost a confirming experience for us as well, which is great.
Yeah,
And it's at Minute Maid Park. I mean, what a cool place for the freaking thing to be.
I mean, it's humbling to go down there and do batting practice, and you're like,
Well, that's because
oh,
I don't do that.
Oh, you got to try it at least once.
I 100% will not.
So you can't be that bad. There's
Well, I don't know, man. I will say this, and when I was in Midland last, I got roped into playing in a softball game for the first time in forever and ever and always. And I struck out swinging, which is way worse than striking out looking.
That is true.
But I held second base down like a pro.
You're a defender. You know, your batting average doesn't have to be great if you're great at defense.
I'm 48 years old. I can't be an all-star anymore.
So I did the batting practice, and I will say the first year I did it was much better than the second year, and I'm not sure why.
You were older.
Maybe so. Like I did feel like I pulled a muscle in the shoulder or something like that.
Oh.
The first year I thought I hit one really good. I hit one out to the warning track,
bounced in the dirt,
and yeah, I mean I was like, this is great. I actually did something good. Well, the guy behind me just first swing just rips one into the Crawford boxes.
There's a guy there that shows up every year with batting gloves that does park one every year, and so I'm like, all right, well, I mean,
he just happened to be following immediately after me, so I was like, that sucks.
I would rather that than be following him.
That's true. I would have rather just not been in the same plus minus 5 people, and I would have been all right.
Again, you're not going to catch me doing it.
No.
I'm going to stand there and have a nice drink and watch everyone else do that.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. They do a good show.
Yeah, it really is.
So let's talk. So when did you start your podcast?
So I had the idea of the podcast back in 2022. Started doing all of the preliminary stuff like the name and all the not fun stuff, because I do all of that stuff myself, right? So I designed the logo, I did all of the naming, everything else. One of my buddy's wives, I do jiu-jitsu with him, but his wife likes to claim the podcast name because she said Street Smarts with an S, and Street Smarts. Clearly, it's obviously different.
Obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
It's like the Vanilla Ice, the ding, ding, ding.
I don't know what you're talking about, but that's fine. Vanilla Ice.
When he got sued for ripping off a song from somebody.
Yes, sure did.
And it was like, there's a small clang in there that's different.
Yeah, no, I remember that. He did rip that off.
Yeah, 100%.
So fine. Jen Guerra, thank you. Wherever you are, if you're listening, thanks. Still made no dollars on that, so you don't get nothing. So July of 22 is when I launched the first episode, and I'd recorded several, obviously 6. I think I recorded 6 before I released one, and then, man, it just kept going. But it's just something it's something I've listened to podcasts for a long time, and I kind of like hearing myself talk sometimes, so it's not a bad thing.
So do you try to search for like the specific guest, or are you trying to, is it just anybody in the industry? Kind of like
So initially it was industry agnostic. I wanted to I talk to oil and gas people all the time anyway, so I was actually more interested in not talking to oil and gas people. Once I joined the Upright Digital Network, which is, Josh Lowry and those guys, shortly after that, he'd signed a partnership with World Oil. And then they requested that if you're going to be on our platform, 75% need to be oil and gas. And then I was kind of salty about that a little bit, but then I was like, okay, fine. I'll just do 100% oil and gas. Mm-hmm. So that was my way of rebelling, and ultimately probably what they wanted anyway. So, but I still felt like I was rebelling.
Yeah. And
that's what's important.
That's always so when I was in college, I was working at a bank, and being a young college guy, it was a part-time job, not a career. And so one day my boss comes in, because you have to sell as a bank teller. You're selling products, and my boss pulled me aside. She's like, maybe this isn't for you, because like your sales are way down here. You just come in, you do your job. You're not doing the extra. So that was my way of rebelling, was I'll show her. Yeah. I just became the best sales guy in the Brazos Valley region.
You weren't wearing enough flair.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not wearing enough flair. So I was like, okay, I'll show you. So I went, and then I became the top salesperson. And she was like, yeah, see, I'm glad our conversation worked. And I was like, wait, what? Damn it. That helped you out.
You don't understand. I was rebelling.
I'm trying to be the rebel.
Yeah. So, but for me, the podcast is specifically about, the journey of the entrepreneur. So really the key demographic is, I need you to have founded a company. I have interviewed people that haven't founded companies, but that have achieved, pretty remarkable success, because their journeys are pretty interesting to talk about as well. But really just interested in learning that entrepreneurial journey. What made you think that you could do that? What made you driven to do that? And I find that stuff interesting. So it's been great.
Those are always interesting stories too, because that's a huge bet on yourself, leap of faith type deal to go out and to start something. Because like, especially in oil and gas, because like you have like external factors that you've got zero control over.
Right.
Like,
it's always fascinated me. Like I said, I watched my dad own businesses, and I've watched my dad lose businesses.
Yeah.
And then he started more businesses. So I didn't understand that. I don't have the risk tolerance to do that. I have great ideas, and then I just never can make myself pull the trigger just because I'm terrified of it. But it's fun to listen to those stories and sort of live a little bit vicariously through them.
Well, I mean, you go back and it's like, there's so many companies that didn't make it through COVID.
Oh yeah.
Not just oil and gas, but in general, but like that they were great ideas, but it was just an external factor just absolutely crushed them where they could not even control payroll or anything through that challenging time.
What's been interesting for me is so many of my interviews, people started businesses during COVID or additional businesses during COVID. It's been pretty interesting to, think back to that time, and you saw so many things, like you said, that weren't making it. And then I have these interviews with people, and they're like, "No, I started like 3 businesses during COVID. It was great."
I mean, it was great. If you look at it going back, it was actually probably the best time you could have started a business, because
you had a lot of time on your hands.
Activity was low. You had a lot of time on your hands. Like you may not have been working, so you could just sit home and focus on this idea. And then when things started getting better, you could actually kind of deploy it.
Yeah, it's been interesting. But yeah, I started the podcast mainly just because I wanted to. I just enjoy doing it. Yeah. And that's really all there is to it. It's not like there's no overarching objective. I just enjoy having those conversations, and it's been really fun, man.
Because I know you've taken it on the road. You've done it, in Midland. Where's is that the only other place you've done it kind of remote?
I'm in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So who'd you get up in Pittsburgh?
A guy named Bob Cresson. So I met Bob. So right after I joined Wildcat, we went to play in a golf tournament up in Pittsburgh. And this is kind of a funny story, actually. So I've known Aaron Marquez, the founder of Fletcher and Wildcat and all that. I've known him for like almost 20 years. So he and I are very good friends. And I come on board at Wildcat in June of 2018. In July of 2018, we fly up to Pittsburgh. And we're going to play in a golf tournament. And it's at Allegheny Country Club, probably one of the oldest country clubs in the country. So it's like this storied place. And the format is, it's three of you and one former NFL player. Okay. So Aaron misunderstood that and thought it was 4 of us and an NFL player. So I'm odd man out. And I'm like, hey man, not a big deal. I'll just go out there. Someone always doesn't show up. I'll just get on a team. And so I went out there with not having a team. I said, I'll just wear my Wildcat stuff, and it's a Chevron tournament, charity thing. I'll just help. I'll ask them to give me the most menial bullshit thing they have, and I'll just do that. Mm-hmm. So I get on a team, and I get on a team with a couple of completions guys from Chevron. Awesome. And a guy named Louis Lips. Now, Louis Lips was a first-round draft pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers back in the day. Like, he was a receiver. And he was absolutely one of the most insane human beings I've been around in my life. And he was so much fun. To this day, like, I can text him, I'm going to Pittsburgh, and he and I'll go eat dinner. Like, he's awesome. So we get up there. Aaron calls me the night before, and he's like, hey, man, I messed up. I don't have a spot for you on the team, but listen, he tried to throw some perks my way. I said, hey, just pay all of my relocation, and then we'll call it even. He said, okay. Fast forward to the golf tournament, third hole of the day, I hit a hole in one, win $25,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And Bob Cresson, the guy that I interviewed in Pittsburgh, he would sponsor the hole. So he and I became friends immediately. And so we get done with the round, and I wasn't on Aaron's team. We come back to the clubhouse, and Aaron's like, man, did you hear somebody had a hole in one? I was like, yeah, I heard that. It's me. And he's like, wait, I'm paying all your relo and you won $25,000. I was like, that's exactly right. So it was kind of a crazy time, but that's how I met Bob. And he's great. He's had a private investigation company for ever. I mean, he's kind of an older fellow now, but it's just those contacts are really interesting, and they're a lot of fun, and they're not all oil and gas contacts for me. And this industry, that is one thing I would caution people in the industry about is you can get sort of in a silo and only know oil and gas people because they're fun people to know. But there's some really interesting people out there that aren't oil and gas.
So that's the challenge that I found so I was with Weatherford for almost 10 years. And being with a big company, you get very siloed because you don't necessarily go to every event. You don't necessarily do the networking thing because your network is this building full of people. If I wanted to go in somewhere, I just call, like, hey, do you call on this person? Yeah, take you in, whatever. So when I left, I thought that my network was much larger than what it actually was. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait a second. So I've spent a ton of time just networking, but it's not just completions. It's like you're on the drilling side, like it's getting out across the industry because that's how you meet more people and you build this network. And then there's really cool people out there.
Right.
And if you just pigeonhole it to just this, then that's all you're ever going to really know.
Well, that was the interesting thing when I started my podcast. Going back to that, I don't want to make this a full on ad for my podcast.
No, go for it.
If you want to listen to it, it's everywhere. Anyway,
yeah, I mean, we can plug it. Can we put up the website?
I started to bring my cup that had it on there, but I drank coffee out of it and I ran out of time and didn't get it washed. But when I started it, I spent a lot of time doing recording and stuff like that and building out the content so that I had it. And it was a lot of time that I wasn't at home necessarily. And I also didn't want to cut out anything else I was doing. I didn't want to stop doing jujitsu. I didn't want any of that stuff to stop. So my wife was getting a little salty about it, understandably. Mm-hmm. And she said, what's the point? And ultimately what I told her was, it never hurts to know a shitload of CEOs and founders of companies.
Yeah. It goes to your personality is an extrovert. You go and you talk. You're at
when I want to be.
When you want to be, right?
Yeah.
And that's a huge trait for everybody, because like I joke and my wife jokes with me all the time. Like I can walk into a restaurant and know everybody by the time I walk out.
Right.
I'll just strike up a conversation. Like I can go eat dinner by myself and I'll befriend the bartender. Like it's just it's just one of the things, but it's because you want to learn more about people.
Right. Genuine conversations, and that's really what it's about, and that's what this is. And if people can learn from those conversations, then that's the even better.
Yeah. I don't know that we're saying anything absolutely intriguing or interesting.
I don't know if we are.
We're having a good time. So I mean, I'm drinking tequila with you.
It's delicious. This is not the first time though. So
no. So okay. So tell me a little bit. You're involved in the poker games. How is that bringing value to Wildcat, to yourself? And then we've got the crawfish boil this weekend.
Right.
If we can split the window and the weather, we're gonna have beautiful weather on Saturday.
I keep looking at it. I think it's gonna be great.
I think it's gonna be fantastic.
It's shit today and tomorrow. Absolutely awesome Saturday, mid 80s. It's gonna be like San Diego.
And shit on
Sunday, terrible.
Yeah. I mean, we're flooding all around us, but we're on an island and we're gonna have good crawfish and sunny weather for at least one day.
I'm hoping it's terrible on Sunday weather-wise, so I don't have to yard work and I can just recover.
I need it to be just halfway decent so I can pick up what I don't pick up Saturday night.
Well, I don't have that problem.
Yeah, you don't have that problem. I got that problem. But so we've got y'all involved and we're doing poker and we're doing everything else. What is it? Has the kind of the response from your company or Aaron or any of that? Hey, what are you doing in Houston? Why are we doing a poker game? Why are we doing this? Have you had to answer any of those questions?
No. And again, going back to what we originally talked about, there's a tremendous amount of trust that Wildcat has placed on me in this type of thing, and so far I've not had to answer those questions, which is again fairly rare.
Yeah.
But Cold War's been so gracious to allow us to sort of kind of cabbage on to those things and be like, hey, and again, like I said, I have a unique connection with tequila, so I can get tequila. Not a problem. And then that partnered with Wildcat, it's all industry. It's just been great. So for us, we don't have a huge presence in Houston, but we are here. And we want to be able to grow that brand recognition. And so this has helped do that. Mm-hmm. And again, I super appreciative to you guys for allowing that, allowing us to be a part of it and promoting it as much as you have. It's been great.
It's and it's been a lot of fun, and I think the initial idea may not have been entirely all that well received when we started doing this back almost a year ago. But then they're starting to see that the connections that are made, the networking, and I always like to say, Cold War is the connector on site. Why can't we be the connector off site too? in this networking world, and we get people connected together, and then all of a sudden this industry that's already really, really tight becomes even tighter.
Right. And you guys have such a unique venue too, here, the Cold War House. I remember when the first time I got invited to the poker night, it was the Cold War Tech House. I remember looking that up and I was like, I'm not going to Calgary. That's ridiculous. And then finally I got the address. I was like, oh shit, that's a house. And this place is so unique and so set up perfect for this type of thing that, man, it's been great. And, every event that we've been a part of with Cold War has been great to be associated with, and has been received internally at Wildcat very well. Yeah. So it's something that I don't anticipate changing, and unless you change it. Yeah. And then you and I will talk off air about that.
Yeah. Well, do jiu-jitsu, so you'll probably just get smacked around.
I will.
Well, you do it. I don't do jiu-jitsu.
I may misunderstood.
I drink tequila and beer, so
I also do that.
But this house has been fantastic from the networking perspective, because one of the things we always talk about is the ability to draw customers and partners in and get them to come over. Most people don't want to leave an office and go to another office.
Not at all. But
if they're leaving an office to go to a house, then it's a different vibe, even though that this is an office and a house.
Right.
We office out of here, but I've done, customer dinners where we just grill steaks, or stuff like that, or like the crawfish boil this weekend.
It's just a much more familiar type setting and more, just personal, and it's very cool. And the house is amazing. I never want to leave when I'm here. I'm just going to live here.
Oh, it's fantastic. Like I come up 1 or 2 nights a week, and what I typically do is I text like a handful of people, like customers or, friends in the industry, whatever. I'm like, hey, I'm at the house. And then
I've never gotten that text. That's
you live up near me. You know when I'm here anyway. But like the people who are down here, and I'm like, hey, and it's, kind of the jumping off point, or if there's, a industry happy hour, or if there's something else, it's like, okay, just everybody meet, we can all Uber together, whatever. And so it's just been this great little kind of like different vibe that we've tried to cultivate.
And you have, and it's extremely unique, and honestly, it's perfect. Like I can't think of another way to describe it. But for us at Wildcat, me personally, this has been an outstanding relationship that I don't see changing.
No, that's awesome. So we're going to probably start wrapping up here in a minute, but I've got some rapid fire questions I'm going to fire at you.
Bring it.
So with your podcast, who would be your most sought after, would love to interview guest besides me?
Well, I mean, the easy answer is Joe Rogan, but that would be a good one. Kind of a pipe dream. Honestly, though, I'd love to interview someone like a Tim Kennedy or Jocko Willink.
Yeah.
Both those guys are jiu-jitsu guys. Both those guys are special forces operators that did some real shit. Tim Kennedy would probably be more interesting to interview on a personal level because he was also like a top 10 welterweight in the UFC, and he did some really pretty remarkable things. I have had the opportunity to interview someone that's, I would consider on the same level as those guys, a guy named Chad Robichaux, who lives here in Spring. Mm-hmm. Again, he was a Force Recon Marine, did some things, and his interview was amazing on a personal level, but just the sort of bucket list guy would be, a Jocko or a Tim Kennedy, someone like that.
Marcus Ochoa would be a good one too, with his history of lone survivor and everything.
I could probably get him, honestly. I know a lot of people that know him, and he's a congressman now up in.
Well, that's a brother.
I think he's Mike. Oh,
so Morgan's the congressman. Marcus.
Oh yeah.
They both live not far from where you and I live.
I could probably get it because Wahlberg played him.
That's right.
And Wahlberg's attached to Flecha Azul. So
Wahlberg played him, and then we've got, I'm sure you've got a bunch of buddies that are probably know him offhanded from Montgomery, Conroe area.
Him and his brother are both pretty active in the community, so people know him here.
Oh, 100%. Joe Rogan would be interesting because that would be one that would be fun just to go on a show or to interview, because I love listening to Rogan. I like the more obscure ones where they start talking about some of the conspiracy theories, because it's just interesting.
I listened to Tucker Carlson when I was driving to Oklahoma City last week. I'm not a huge Tucker Carlson fan, but it was an interesting podcast.
Yeah, the Joe Rogan Tucker. Uh-huh. Yeah, I listened to that. That's very interesting.
I don't buy the fact that Tucker said he doesn't have an email address.
Yeah,
I'm calling bullshit on that.
Yeah, I definitely call bullshit on that, and a few other things that he said he didn't really get on the computer or something else.
Yeah, bullshit.
Yeah, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. One of the other ones that my lovely assistant over here provided, your most used app on your phone.
Most used app?
Yep.
Probably Instagram, honestly. Whether it's wasting absolute hours of life watching reels or doing social media posts, things like that. It's either going to be Instagram or LinkedIn. Maybe Map. I don't know.
This one is going to be definitely a hard question because nobody wants. It's like saying, who's your favorite child? Your favorite episode that you've done
of my podcast?
Yeah,
Chad Robichaux. Easy.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll have to listen to that one.
Episode 9.
Episode 9? Oh, that was early on.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he went on mine, and then he went right after mine on the Duck Dynasty guys, and then he was on Fox News right after that.
Oh,
and
really?
I was like, I'm killing the game. Look at me.
Oh, there you go. So who was your first guest?
First guest was a guy named Cody Gill for Stealth out in Odessa. Hey, Cody's a longtime West Texas boy, never done a podcast before. Outstanding. He's a great episode.
I think you probably had a better guess than I did for my first one.
Who's yours? I brought tequila though.
That is true. I'll give you that. You brought tequila. So
bottles and bottles of the stuff.
There you go. Cool. Well, I think that kind of wraps us up. Justin, definitely appreciate you coming on. If people want to kind of learn more about your Street Smart or about you in general, LinkedIn.
LinkedIn's obviously a great resource. Instagram is another. Street Smart Joe, Street Smart Jo, or I'm pretty basic. I do the same stuff. I tell people all the time I'd be the easiest person to kill because you'd have to follow me for like 2 days and be like, got it,
figured out.
I know his schedule.
Yeah.
So
I kind of wanted to do like an exit like between two ferns. Have you ever watched that? Zach Galifianakis, like where he just deadpans everything. But,
he's so awesome. Man.
Oh man, I love that. The movie was
great.
kind of a little weird.
The movie was weird, but it was still funny.
Oh, the
Galifianakis is great.
Oh man, love it. Well, okay, that does it. Man, I appreciate you coming on.
Happy to do it.
Hey, looking forward to finishing these drinks, having some more conversation, and then crawfish
in 2 days.